Well, good evening and Happy New Year. Frank gave away, of course, my nationality. Most people don't know what Singaporean or a Chinese is. I remember when I was in Philippines, they thought I was a Mongolian. When I was in Japan, they were convinced I was Maori. And when I was in Germany, they thought I was Mexican. And when I was in Catford, they were convinced I was Spaniard. I was preaching in Northwood and they thought I was from Greenland. I was an Eskimo. So somebody asked me, what are you? I said, well, I'll be whatever you want me to be. But it's great. I've got an international face. I get away with all kinds of things, which is great. But I want to say that it is very difficult for me to say that it's only by the grace of God.
Amen.
29th of December last year was my 30th anniversary, spiritual anniversary. And I'm grateful to the Lord for every single moment of that 30 years. And I pray that this evening, if somehow God will encourage you. As mentioned, I grew up in Singapore with a Chinese background. My parents were Taoist, Buddhist background, Confucianists. Believe me, for the Chinese and the Koreans and the Japanese, the Asians, they are Confucianists. They are totally confused. And Singapore in the earlier days was not that well-to-do and not established. It's a very poor country, just like Cambodia or anywhere else. And I grew up in a very messy background. Singapore was actually run by the Triads. My dad, he was quite interesting. When he was in the police force, he was a police sergeant. And they were fighting communists. And my grandmother used to nag at him because he was too dangerous. For what he was paid, it was not worth it. And so he decided to quit the police force and join the Triad. That's a smart thing to do, eh? Because he was getting more money with the Triad than with the police force. So he joined the Triad, and he was pretty messy. He became a drunk. He got into gang fights. He comes back with slash wounds everywhere. And we thought we never know when he was going to see my dad alive. My mother was a gambler, hardcore gambler. And so I grew up literally just, independent. I was like a maid in the house. I looked after my siblings. I had to cook, do the ironing, cooking. When I was 7 years old, I started smoking when I was 5. And, started doing all kinds of wild stuff. My neighborhood was a great neighborhood. My landlord was Chinese, they're all Triads. My next door neighbor were Malays, they're all drug pushers. And so you get a good sandwich of drug pushers and Triad. And so I got involved with both. And I got involved with, I was training martial art for 7 years. I got involved in Buddhism for 7 years, studied Buddhism for 7 years. And on one hand, you got a really wild life, and on the other hand, you try to be religious. I don't know how that works, but that's how people, they try to clear their conscience with all the bad things that they're doing. They thought religion will just somehow clear their conscience. And that was what I was trying to do. I had my friends who went to sea, and they started telling me about life outside of Singapore, all the wonderful things. They don't tell me all the bad things, they tell me all the good things. So I started taking my first marijuana when I was 13 years old, and then get into harder drugs, get involved with morphine, opium. I tried literally everything. Then I decided, because my dad only speaks to me and my brother with his fists. And we were beaten up bad. I got thrown out of the house many, many times. I was sleeping on the street. I was like a street kid. I sleep on cemeteries many, many times. The cemeteries was my second home. And so it was a very, very wild, independent kind of a life. And so I thought, well, maybe I will go away somewhere and find a new life. So I became a seaman. Of course, that doesn't change very much. That got me worse into drugs. And on top of that, because alcohol was duty-free and you get deeper into alcohol, I was drinking at least 1 bottle of whiskey a day plus everything else that comes with it, drugs and everything else. So it was quite heavy. And when I was, I had a dream, because I had so many stories about all different countries, and so I had a dream of visiting 50 countries before I died. Lo and behold, after 10 countries, I got kicked out of sea service because I started a mutiny on the ship. And fighting against the captain and all the officers, and so they kicked me out of sea service. And so I had a very close friend who we grew up together, and he was also on drugs. 3 of us, we all on drugs and get involved with the Triads. And he went to Thailand and he fled the army. We had to join the army. In Singapore, you were 18 years old, you have to join the army. So he fled the army. He hated the army. We all hated the army because I got involved with the hippies. John Lennon was my hero. But he's got one song which I was 100% convinced about. It's a song that he says, I don't believe. I don't believe in Elvis, I don't believe in the Pope, I only believe in me. Great. And that was my philosophy. I only believe in me. And so I just do everything for myself. Now deep down inside, I knew that a lot of things that I do is not right. And I don't want to get involved with drugs. I don't want to get involved with this kind of lifestyle, because I realize that when I'm heavily involved with these kind of things, I become self-centered and selfish, and I couldn't care less about everybody else, and therefore everybody else couldn't care less about me either. And that makes me lonely. And so try to cover up my loneliness, I get more into drugs, and I will experiment with anything, literally. Finally, I decided that maybe I should go to Thailand and join my friends. So I went to Thailand. Thailand is what they call the devil's paradise. And you can get anything under the sun. And so then I get involved heavily with heroin. And the temptation, of course, is to sell heroin because it's big money and it's very easy to make money in Thailand because they are so corrupt. The corruption is so bad. Very easy. I can just buy kilos of heroin and get the policeman to carry them for me. So I don't have to do anything. So big, so you're pretty safe. And you get involved with that, but you're still lonely. It's still meaningless. It's still, I was in nightclubs every night. I was doing all kinds of other stuff, but life is just purposeless. But one day I got somebody to turn me in. I got to be greedy. I wanted to do it big, international. So because my neighbor in Thailand, he got involved. He was pretty close to the Golden Triangle, and tried to get me involved in it, and then talk me into becoming a little bit more greedy, trying to make more money. And so I tried to test the market. Unfortunately, somebody turned me in. I got involved. I got into prison in Thailand, and in 1975, believe me, the Thai prison is not exactly a holiday bungalow. Every week we have to go, while we're waiting for trial, we had have you seen the Viking movies? We had this big, massive chain on your legs, and we had to carry this chain. We have to walk from the prison to the courthouse every single day, just for hearing. And and the food is incredibly bad. You can smell it 3 miles away. I mean, I'm not kidding you. Three meals a day, you are given the same thing: rotten cabbage, rotten fish, and unpolished rice. No hot water. You can forget about coffee. You bring your own beddings. If you don't bring your own beddings, you sleep on the floor. We had a room slightly bigger than this. There was 400 of us in this room. You get up to go to the toilet in the night. You come back. You have to sit all night through. And the toilet is 3 buckets. You squat on those buckets. The toilet is right there in the room. Wonderful place. and you get beaten pretty bad. But if you have money, you will enjoy life there. Anyway, that's besides the point. But then we were waiting for deportation because I'm a foreigner. When I was in immigration prison waiting for deportation, I met a Malaysian guy who was waiting for deportation for 9 years. Well, I decided that I'm not going to wait 9 years. And a friend of mine, unfortunately, this friend of mine, a very close friend of mine who fled the army, he was in the same prison. Initially, we were in different prison. The Singapore embassy was a bit confused because he uses my name and my passport number, and so they didn't know who was the real one. But then when we were in the same prison, unfortunately, because he was arrested first, they thought I was the fake one. So they never gave me any help. And so when we were in the same prison, my friend panicked because he knew that sooner or later, the truth would come out. And so he jokingly told a visitor, we didn't have any visitors because we're foreigners, and we have a lot of other visitors. And so he was jokingly telling this lady, can you please bring a saw?